Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for rejoining us. I want to remind all the members of the audience, you are invited to turn on your cameras, and please keep in mind that we have muted everyone. And if you want to pose a question, just write it down in the chat. During the session, please refer the question to the host. He will give you the floor during the Q&A slot, and we'll unmute you. So this part we covered. And now we'll go to our session about resilience in legal education, the Israeli experience. So we have three distinguished speakers today. Dana Giloh, who is the director of the Conflict Resolution Clinic in the University of Haifa. Hala Khoury-Bisharat is the academic director of the Haifa Campus Law School, Ono Academic College. And Michal Goren, who is the director of the International Human Rights Clinic in the Clinical Legal Education Center here in the Hebrew University. And we will start with Dana.
So hi everyone, I'm Dana Giloh. I'm a mediator, a social worker, and the head of the Mediation Legal Clinic in Haifa University. And today I'm going to share insights from consensus building process we conducted within our faculty during the ongoing war. So can you please share my presentation, Ido? Okay, so we can move to the next slide. So in the days following Hamas's brutal attack on Israeli settlements around Gaza Strip on October 7th, a few Arabic-speaking students from Haifa University published posts that allegedly supported Hamas's actions, which resulted in the brutal murder of more than 1,400 Israeli civilians and soldiers, including women and children. Many of the victims were raped and their bodies were mutilated. In response, the university rector took immediate action by suspending these students without due process, including expelling them from the student dorms until a further decision was made. In turn, 40 professors from various departments in the university signed a petition demanding the rector to hold off on this decision until disciplinary committee could assess whether the post indeed supported terrorism and justified the suspension. During those terrible days, when people were traumatized and fearful of what might come next, many students interpreted the professor's letter as an act of supporting terrorism and defending those who promote it. This sparked widespread protest, with demands for the university to fire those 40 professors, 2 of whom were from our faculty, the law faculty. The faculty also received messages from Students' Council indicating that students refused to study with those 2 professors, a situation the faculty management refused to even discuss. Consequently, we found ourselves in a complicated situation. Jewish students were unwilling to study with those 2 professors, and some were afraid to attend classes alongside with the Arab students, fearing further acts of violence. Meanwhile, Arab students felt unsafe and unprotected, worried about possible retaliation from the Jewish students, and felt let down by the system that suspended their peers without due process. In this context, a group of faculty members and I gathered to seek a way forward. While some believed we should wait for tensions to ease or take disciplinary actions against those who acted wrongly, we felt strongly that the only path to restoring a sense of normality in our academic environment was to explore solutions from definitive dispute resolution, or ADR. We aim to create a space for students to come together, discuss their fears and anger, and find solutions based on understanding. So what is consensus building anyway? It is a process from the ADR field where people from different groups and perspectives gather to answer a central question to find a solution or find a solution to a problem, aiming for agreement among all relevant stakeholders. This process involves fostering open dialogue and mutual understanding among diverse groups. In this case, we gathered Arabic students, Druses, Jewish, Palestinians, Christians, each group with different perspectives and different identity and different fears and angers. This process is typically facilitated by a neutral third party. This is why we invited Mrs. Mariela Buchnik-Yabetz, a mediator and a social worker, to help me guide our faculty community. She worked alongside me, the faculty dean and the vice dean, leading this initiative as a team. So we started by sending invitations to all faculty community, inviting everyone to come and express their voice. We also tried to create a very personal connection by doing personal meetings with every person who has a role in the faculty or with anyone who showed any interest in being part of the process. We created a personal connection by deep listening and empathy for everyone who took part. And you can see we had 40 hours of personal meetings, which is a lot of time. And down below, you can see the leading guidelines that we created, that led us through this process. So I want to talk to you about the first meeting, which is in the next slide. So it's almost impossible for me to find the words to capture the sheer madness of those days. The air was thick with trauma, a collective wound festering in the hearts of everyone around me. Each day brought a barrage of missile launches directed at Israel, transforming everyday life into a constant state of anxiety. People were afraid to leave their homes, hesitate to leave their children alone, in a world that felt increasingly unsafe. The tension between the Jewish students and the Arabic students, already delicate issue, reached an unprecedented level, and in the midst of this all turmoil, we took a bold step, inviting people to come together, to sit down with those they feared might hurt them. Some staff members expressed their disbelief, insisting that this idea was going to explode in a conflict. And many students shared with us that they desired to join us, but they were too afraid to come. Yet we knew that if we didn't provide a safe space for the people to meet, to look at each other's eyes, and to remember our shared humanity, things would only worsen. The discussions online and in WhatsApp groups were escalating tensions, and we feared that by the time the academic year will begin, we would find ourselves unable to teach, study, or work together. In the first meeting, we had 30 participants, staff and students from all different groups. Each one has 3 minutes to talk, and we were mapping the concerns, the interests, and the subjects of discussion that we want to talk in the next meeting. And when the meeting ended, we sent a letter to all faculty community. It was a very special meeting because it was the first time after a very long period that people didn't meet during the summer vacation and the war, that finally they sat together listening. Something happened. There was a feeling of understanding, of listening and of caring. Some apologized for the way they acted, and some told us that they were able to see things different now. And it was interesting to see that after the meeting was over, one of the professors and one of the students who was leading the protest against him was walking together towards the elevator speaking. The next meeting is in the next slide. Thank you. So in the second meeting, we were working in teams through different subjects, freedom of speech, dealing with hard feelings during the war, and strengthening the connections between the Jews and the Arabs in the faculty, and discussing a variety of solutions. So what was the output of this whole process? The next slide, please. So we were able to restore a sense of community, solidarity, and trust after a long time of deteriorating relationships and escalating events between the protesters and the professors, and between the groups of the Jewish students and the group of the Arab students. And suddenly people were sitting together and talking. People remembered that we are all part of the same place that we loved and valued, and we prefer to be able to move forward. We wrote together a team, the guidelines for free and safe discourse. And one of the main things we found out on this first meeting was that many of the things escalated because instead of talking to each other in cases of disagreement, things were handled by going outside, like social media or the press or discipline committee. So it was one of the principles that we agreed on is if something came up, first you should approach the other side, a student or a professor, directly. If it doesn't solve it, then we move to the next step of mediation. And only if this doesn't work or it's not possible, then we turn to punitive direction or social media. And indeed, during the year, we had the mediation mechanism that we used 3 or 4 times that help us to deal with things when they got escalated. So thanks to the process, we had a relatively quiet academic year, considering the circumstances, not that it was perfect. When multicultural issues started, we had a compass, the guidelines, and when things got complicated, we used mediation. The last slide, please. So why does leading consensus building process require a lot of courage from all of us? Because we had to confront the fear that it might make things worse. Because we had to face those who told us that it would likely to fail. Because we have to accept the possibility that people might blame us if things went wrong. And because we had to hold on to this idea even when we are not sure ourselves that it's going to work. For me as a clinician, stepping up in such a sensitive time and choosing to lead the faculty in a completely different direction than its usual approach was incredibly difficult and intimidating. It also took courage from the faculty to embrace something which is such high level of uncertainty in such hard and sensitive times, and to risk being criticized for their tolerance towards wrongful behavior and speech. This is also a story of hope because it shows that even in cases of deep and fierce conflict, suspicion and fear, building consensus and trust, and safeguarding diverse and inclusive communities is possible. And I would like to say that I'm proud to be a part of an organization that chose to deal with this crisis in such a brave, inspiring, and inclusive way. So thank you. And I hope here you can see some of the participants' experience. And I hope I was able to bring some of the very complicated and long process we made in the short time I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Dana. It was very, very interesting, and you showed us both the challenges and also how you were able to overcome them in a very interesting empowerment way, and also using your clinical expertise to overcome such a huge conflict. It's hard to explain how much I identify with everything you said. And thank you for sharing this with us. And we'll move to our next speaker, Hala. Hi. So if
Hello.
you can, hi.
Yes, you hear me?
Hear you well. Thank you.
Yes.
So maybe you can share your point of view as the academic director of the Haifa campus law school and the challenges that you faced in your work.
Okay. Thank you for Dana. Thank you for inviting me to speak today. أنا Hala Khoury-Bisharat. I'm a Palestinian citizen of Israel. I would like to point out that I want to continue what Dana started and stress that after the 7th of October attack and the war on Gaza, the horrific onslaught on Gaza, and the horrific tragic events of 7 October, the atmosphere in Israel towards the Palestinian citizens of Israel, the homeland minority, was extremely suppression of freedom of expression. And what Dana here described for you, I would like to say that all Palestinians felt that all the state apparatus, that there was a real and still ongoing persecution of any political identifying or solidarity with our people in Gaza. So police arrested people who demonstrated against the war. Universities and colleges in Israel also persecuted Arab students because they identified with Palestinians in Gaza. Now I want to talk to you about the atmosphere in my college. Well, I'm doing a tremendous work. I am the head of the faculty, a law faculty in Haifa of Ono College, academic college. And we have a real multicultural campus. We have 50% Arab students, we have 50% Jewish. They're all studying together. So you can imagine how was the atmosphere very, very challenging, to say the least, at the time of war. I can give you and I would like to say that I am a teacher of international criminal law or public international law. I teach this subject to Israeli students during the war. So it's really very, very challenging. So I'm going to give you, I'm going to share with you my experience as a teacher, as a lecturer, and as a head of the faculty with all these heavy issue and heavy atmosphere all around. So as a teacher of international criminal law, when I teach my students, it's really very hard to teach Israelis about any laws of war, international humanitarian law, or the ICC. But I made it a point specifically in this time that it is very important for my students to know about the International Criminal Court and accountability. But I do face tremendous challenges because my students still, I mean, I'm an Arab Palestinian. They look at me, so they would tell me, some student came to me and told me, please, Dr. Khoury, can you please not give us examples? And I said, what examples are you talking about? No, examples of Israel. I can't hear that. I told her, we are in the academy. If not here, so where? I mean, you're an Israeli student. You're studying international law. You have to learn. You have to, I mean, we have to tackle these issues. So it's very hard for them. It's very hard for Israeli students. If I want to speak, you know, I teach the norms. So they would call, for instance, a terrorist, and they wouldn't call maybe a war crime. So it's very hard. Really, it's really challenging and frustrating sometimes. And I need to understand everybody because I am also the head of the faculty and I do live in Israel and I grew up here. So I know all the parts. I know all the sides. I sympathize with this side. I sympathize with the other side. And as a head of the faculty, I am responsible for this multicultural atmosphere. I want to keep it. I'm building a very courageous, really important project in this campus. I want students, Palestinians, Arabs, and Jewish Israelis to be able to be in the same place, expressing different views. We don't need to accept each other's views, just to even to accept that there's another opinion, that it is allowed. And it is very difficult in times of war because the state and the general atmosphere, they look at Palestinians as enemies, internal enemies of the state living within. So I have to lead all this campus while I have to suppress my feelings as a Palestinian. I cannot talk about how I feel in general or as a lecturer or as an academic. I cannot express anything. I'm not allowed. I sympathize, I empathize, I accept others, but I'm not allowed to say anything because if I express really what I think or what I feel, it's unacceptable. There's no place for these feelings. So just another example for when I'm, not only me, another teacher came to me, a faculty member, and he told me, Hala, what to do. A student in the middle of the lecture, he wrote on the chat, it was a Zoom lecture, and he wrote that Kahana, he was a right-wing extremist, racist, that was banned from the Israeli Knesset in 1988. And he called for the transfer of the Palestinian Arabs from Israel. And he said, he wrote in the chat that Kahana was right in his ideas. So imagine Arab student, Palestinian students sitting in this class have to see this writing in the middle of that kahana who wanted to kick them out from their homeland was right. So this lecturer, chose not to do anything, and he came and he consulted me afterwards. The Arab students felt so humiliated. So they approached me, and what I chose to do, I called the student who wrote on the chat, the Jewish student, and I called Arab students, and we sat together, and one of them said, talked about their feelings. So I'm kind of linked to what Dana said, that if we sit together and we need to give the space for the other to express their feeling and to accept that there's a different opinion, and I give the space for this different opinion. Yes, I'm not supposed to accept this opinion. I don't want but there is a different opinion, and it is allowed to have a different opinion. Okay. And then the guy who wrote Kahanat Sadak apologized because I explained that there are red lines in academy. There are red lines, and we should keep red lines. Like you're not supposed to say any racist. Freedom of expression is freedom of expression, but there are limits. The moment you hurt others, you specifically in a very sensitive situation. And I would like to underline the fact that when the war started, and there was a very, very, hatred speech all around Israel against Arab, against Palestinians. So all faculties in Israel said, we will not tolerate any solidarity with Gaza or with the victims of Gaza, nothing. So I asked my faculty, please, could you also publish a statement saying that my college will not tolerate any expression of hatred against Palestinian students in the campus, because it's not only to not we cannot to have solidarity with our fellow Palestinians, but also we have to absorb hatred. We have to remain silent. So I asked the faculty, and my faculty did publish, because I was the head of the college in Haifa. So I had this, because of my position, I could affect the speech. And it's very much affected the whole atmosphere in the college, because the Arab students felt that they are not alone. They are not left alone in this
reality. Thank you very much, Hala. You were able in a little more than 10 minutes to put a finger on so many issues we had to deal with in the past year. And also you spoke about how and specifically your personal identity was affected, and how you were able to affect others to see the possibilities, that there are other views and we need to accept them, especially views that were common and were unspoken. And also how you and Dana both, I know, use the same way to overcome all those obstacles of hatred and hardened feeling and the problems that we had during this past year. I'm really sorry. If you can keep your mark, and we'll come back to you after Michal will speak. We'll have some more time. Okay, sorry, we have a really short time. And we'll go now to Michal Goren, my lovely colleague. So Michal, if you can say some words about your challenges since the October 7th war.
Absolutely. First, I would just like to say that Dana's project is astonishing, and Hala, I can really learn from every word you said. So thank you for sharing this with us, and also thank you for having me here, Sigal and Ido, and Shiran. I think one what Dana and Hala said was really touching the heart of one of the most problematic issues we had on campus this year, and that was the tension that came from outside to within the campus to the classes. It was really felt, and we were all the staff of the university was worried about it before the semester started. So we were really on our toes, waiting for blast to happen. We have Jewish and Palestinians students at the university, at the faculty, and of course at the International Human Rights Clinic, which is anyway also in regular days a bit tense because we're dealing a lot with the questions of the Israeli international state and status and occupation or collective punishment. And every year there is this tension in class, and we knew that this was going to be bigger this year. And then we thought together also with Shiran and Professor Goren, who is the academic advisor of the clinic, and Nasser Oda, who works with me in the clinic, who's co-directing it with me, that the clinic would actually be really the right place to open this up. We have this advantage of weekly meetings in which we talk for an hour about cases, but also about how we relate to these cases, or which cases do the students want to take, and why, who is the population we represent, and also dilemmas that rise up. There's a place for that. So instead of fearing this tension to blow up, we will let it be. And I think some of this, well, I want to say all of the students, but I'm not sure, but many of them felt that maybe it was unrelatable to study this year. I don't know, other kinds of law that is not connected to what's going on outside. So the clinic was, and the classes of the clinic were the place for them to open up and to talk an emotional discourse as well as the legal discourse, because it's there and it touches everyone. And we had a class where they started a huge argument between well, not only Palestinians and Jews, but there was a big argument, and we continued talking about it afterwards, after the class, and in the meeting with the teams, and they continued arguing on the next class, which dealt with the status of residents in East Jerusalem, of Palestinians of East Jerusalem. But I noticed that they continue, I think Hala said it, that they continued talking after class. They were arguing and arguing endlessly, but they stayed after class, and I saw them like raising their hands and speaking very loud, and then eventually they were listening to each other and they were talking, and that was radical in my point of view. And afterwards they all complained to me that the other side doesn't listen, and I thought that if both sides feel this way, it's a good thing. And I told them that over and over again, that it's a good thing and I'm proud of them. And I very actively encouraged the Palestinian students to talk in class, because I know they feel silent anyway every year in general, but this year, as was presented before, it was even more intense, and I really asked them to bring their point of view and not to be afraid, and I'm glad that they gave us this opportunity. Do I have more time to give another example, Shiran? Okay. You're on mute.
I know, he took over my my freedom of muting and unmuting myself. Maybe you'll have some more time afterwards, because first I want to say that just as a personal note, the executive director of the clinical center, I continually say to the staff over and over during the year that in this year, everything we do is a success. If we gone through the first class, it's a success. We finished the semester, we are enormously successful. So hearing all three of you gives me hope, and knowing that there are different kinds of successes that we need to hang on to in those hard situations. So now, Ido, do we have some questions?
Yeah, we have one question from Rajesh Kumar.
Yes.
So my question is to Hala, Khoury-Bisharat, and the question is, the diverse opinion or the opposing viewpoint can only exist in a society which have democratic values. And when it comes to the extreme situation like war or any kind of armed conflict, we cannot expect the same kind of freedom of expression which is available in normal time. So, and moreover, when the problem is arising from outside the country, or the conflict is a creation or a kind of, the armed conflict is imposed on your country from the outside actors, and these actors are hiding behind a particular region or the people living in that region, then it comes with a higher responsibility on the resident of the country or the citizen of the country, even if they have ethnic affiliation, even if they have religious affiliation, even if they have some nationalistic attachment with the people who are somehow supporting the act of terror or act of the kind of attack on the democratic value of the society. So in such a situation, how do you look at that freedom of speech or freedom of expression is given or to be given or should be given higher space in a country which is under the, or in a situation which is, in a warring zone? Thank you.
Thank you, Raji, for your question. Well, I think a democratic country cannot be a country which is occupying another. Israel is occupying the West Bank, Gaza, since 1967. And I don't think a fully democratic state, liberal democratic state, can be democratic, real democratic, and people are still under occupation. I think there's the inner contradiction. So, Raja, I think in order for me to give you an answer, it would mean that I have to explain to you the whole history of the conflict between Palestine and Israel, and it is
I know
not
the history.
only. Yes.
Sorry.
So with all due respect, I don't agree that every resisting occupation, not terror. Yes, people is under occupation. They have the right to freedom. They have the right to independence in a legitimate way. But you cannot judge not every Palestinian who expresses solidarity with victims of occupation, of war, meaning that he's a terrorist or he is, colliding with terrorist groups. So I don't think it's a black and white. It's very, very complicated. Yes. So you cannot judge this. I don't know. So maybe you come and visit us and we'll have we'll have a deep talk about the conflict. And you should know Israel is a democratic state. Israel has supremacy. Jews has supremacy in Israel. So if we want to talk about equality also in Israel, about democratic values, there's also a problem in that. I didn't go into that. It's not the topic of our session here. But Raja, I'm sorry. I mean, I cannot give you, but I can give you much better answer, but not. I mean,
not in the time that we have.
Not in the time, and not in this, this session. It's yes. I don't think. And what I wanted to say before to Shiran, that although what I said about bringing the students, this was before the war. It was after the previous war on Gaza. We had many wars in Gaza. We had 2009, 2012, 2014, 2018, and now after 7th of October. So what I wanted to say and stress that Palestinian students, residents, citizens, they don't really have freedom of expression nowadays. They don't, because they're not allowed even to protest in the streets because they get arrested. No solidarity, no, nothing. So it's much more complicated. And I said that I'm trying in my campus to keep the atmosphere that the other is there, but the other is suppressed. Yes, the other is suppressed, but it's there. Thank you.
Thank you, Hala. Ido, we have another question.
We have a comment from Steve. Please, Steve.
Hi,
yes,
Steve.
very briefly, I wanted to thank Dana, Michal, and Hala for this glimpse, and it really is a glimpse. I know more time could be devoted to what I think most of the world on the outside doesn't know completely what's going on inside Israel, and I think vice versa. And I can appreciate the tension, the pressure, the trauma, and all that you three of you evoked. And again, thank you so much for sharing that with this group today. Toda, shukran.
Thank you, Steve. So we have a few more minutes for our presenter to give another insight or understanding or a glimpse of how they felt their clinical legal education or academic legal education was giving them maybe tools or other possibility of overcoming the situation that we dealt with in the past year. You don't have much time, so we go quickly. Dana?
Okay, so I would like to add that even for me, I'm working with the mediation in everyday life, like in neighbors mediation or divorce mediation. And I would like to add that even for me, it was refreshing or new to find out that we can use those tools in such wide context and try to influence the relationship maybe outside of our faculty by what we're doing from the inside. And I know that this is just like a little spot, just a little thing that we've done, but this is my general belief that if we try to do things right in our small area where we are practicing or where we are working, then maybe it could be widened outside to wider circles. And this is what I hope we'll manage to accomplish, maybe just a little bit.
Thank you, Dana. Hala, you want to add something?
Just a quick something I wanted to say, that I believe teaching in a very problematic atmosphere, I think as a teacher now and as a head of a faculty, we should make it a point while we teach that there are, I said that before, that there are red lines. We cannot allow students to cross while the lesson is going on. If somebody says, and I had this last week in my class in international law, that one student wrote to the others that I think they should have bombed all Hamas in 2001 and killed all of them when I was talking about an incident happening in 2001 in Gaza, and he wrote that they should be all killed. So what I chose to do the next time, I just stopped the chat option. I didn't allow them to chat because an Arab student was hurt from this remark, and he approached me and told me, Doctor, how would you deal with that? And I called both of them to my room and we talked about it. And I thought that it's not really wise now to let this chat. Yes, I'm trying to imagine as if we were in class. I wouldn't accept such a remark. So I decided to stop the chat. I don't know. I mean, this is maybe to stay away from problems, but this is one way for me to have, a kind of a normal class going on. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Can I follow up on what you said? Ask something. Did you, like, as the head of the faculty?
No. As a teacher,
No, but as the head of the faculty, did you like prepare with the professors and the other staff and faculty like guidelines for how to deal with situations?
Yes. We built guidelines before. I mean, about emergency times. So about being tolerant or not to tolerate racist, expressions. The red lines, what we talked about before. It's very important, to have the
framework.
Yes, to have the framework, and yes, to have red lines where things should be stopped. Yes, not racist expression, because it makes the whole atmosphere, very bad. Yes, people feel hurt. Students feel, nobody is taking any consideration for their feelings.
Yes,
it's a one-sided. So it's sometimes it's not that I run away from the problem. No, I'm not like this. I always tackle them. But sometimes it's wise just to let the class pass and stop the chat right away. So
yes, it's also a red line sometimes. It's part of the
Yes.
Thank you. Michal, just a quick heads up, and then we have another question.
Yes, I think that we who teach human rights, and we know that everything is always in context and in political context. We can't ignore what's going on outside. And this year we had to be oversensitive sometimes. I mean, I'm still not sure. I wouldn't dealt with some dilemmas the same as I would the years before, but we can't ignore it. If someone doesn't feel comfortable taking a case of either a Palestinian or someone who wants to join the army, on the other hand, I had to listen to them, and through talking about it, again, like Hala said, I don't want to avoid the issue, but rather to tackle it, talking about the limits of representation and the fact that in the future, when they will be lawyers, they wouldn't have the opportunity to choose exactly which case they want to represent in. This year, I gave them the privilege and the opportunity to waive cases they don't feel comfortable with, but through processing it in the meeting and addressing it.
Yeah, so you gave a lot of room to them during your intervention meeting with them that we do on a weekly basis, and that also helped speak about the issues that came up. We have a question on the chat from Anne Van Aken. You want to? Yeah.
Hi. First of all, many thanks for this webinar. It has been very interesting. I was wondering, and thus I cannot really direct my question, but in all those conflict situations, be it Nigeria, but also Israel, Palestine, I was wondering whether there's anything from the law schools on an attempt, in a way you do this, and this is why I'm asking the question, Dana. Is there any attempt to find something like a bottom-up transitional justice processes? Are the law schools preparing something? Are you coming together in Israel? I work a lot with Israeli. I'm from Germany. I work a lot with Israeli scholars, and I wonder. I think there's a thorough need for it. I've been teaching myself in Haifa as well as the Hebrew U. Already by then, it was necessary, as you say. It's not a new situation. But I wonder what is coming out there, and whether anything is prepared and how you go along. Because I think as law faculties, you have the unique opportunity to include the Palestinian students, to include the Jewish students, and it shouldn't be something which is top down the process. So I wonder about that. I'm sorry I can't really direct it to anyone. And if you think that the question for now is misplaced, so maybe...
No, it's a great question, and it's directly to the point, because we have a transitional justice program that Sigal moderates, and Michal is part of it in our legal clinics. So you handled it just to the point. So I'll let Dana answer, and the rest of want to follow up.
Okay, so I cannot speak about anything broader than what we did in our faculty, but I can say that what we did was bottom-up process, because it was students from all the different groups working with staff members together, and even like the guidelines, I gave it an example, which is also available on our website and translated to Arabic and to English, was written together by Palestinian students with Jewish students and professors together. So it was bottom up, and all the things we discussed and all the suggestions that were made in the groups were bottom up from the students and the professors up to the faculty management. But I cannot speak of any wider project. I think this is maybe where Sigal can talk, or Shiran and Michal.
Yeah, I just say that before. Sorry to interrupt. Just as a clinical teacher as well, this is the basis of our work. We work bottom up. We get a lot of legal cases, and from that, we try to see and solve if there are any bigger issues. For example, it's not transitional justice, but we have a street law in my youth rights clinic. We have here Advocate Shiran, who's also running the clinic with me, and in the street law we have children from East Jerusalem who come to the university, and we try to mind get over the gaps of law in books and law in action. But I'll let Michal, Sigal, and Hala follow up, especially regarding the transitional justice.
Well, we are a part of a transitional justice program. The students, Sigal is teaching them about the history of and opportunities of transitional justice, and it ends up in a workshop where the students themselves think of example from their own cases, which is very bottom up. They are identifying those spots in the cases, which they from their, everyday encounters with our clients, and I think Sigal did it very wisely this year. It's very hard. It was very hard this year to look ahead, to see the transition. We felt very stuck where we are. Nobody want to transit anything, but the fact that the students had the opportunity to be in a workshop with Sigal and to note the injustices that they see and that they identify in their cases, like the way that institutional discrimination, for example, and the fact that they are noticing it, and it can be helpful for future advance. It's the first step of naming the injustices. It gave a different perspective, I think, to the and a contra to the frustration that we felt this year.
Yeah, maybe I'll just piggyback on that and then give the floor to Hala to conclude if she wants some remarks on this topic. But I think, yeah, so what Michal was saying is exactly one of the main, I guess, methods for us to bring transitional justice thinking into the clinical work, because we still work as traditional clinics. We still do individual cases mostly. We do some policy advocacy as well, but mostly we do one-on sort of a client-based litigation, et cetera. And what we try to get the students to think about is where transitional justice meets their cases. So, you know, a lot of the cases, eventually, when they think the victims would want, you know, to get some kind of reparation, which is more conventional, I would say, I don't know, a monetary reparation or a in-kind reparation if their status was taken away from them, for example, with the residents in East Jerusalem, or receiving some socioeconomic benefits. But then the students, when they go into this case thinking about those paradigms, realizes that the needs are completely different. They're the more what we call symbolic, right? They want the recognition that historically their rights were collectively taken away from them. They would like an apology. They would like people to recognize the harms much more than they want the money in the bank. And I think thinking about it in transitional justice terms sensitizes the students to these issues. And these students then become the leaders of tomorrow. So hopefully they take these ideas forward. This is a very sort of, you know, slow motion, I guess, long-term preparation of the minds and hearts of the students. But I think we feel that we're in a very much in a pre-transitional justice stage with these things. But I think Dana's example also shows that, you know, if you think about transitional justice as, you know, truth, justice, reparations, and non-recurrence, that she took at least two of those elements, and that's truth and non-recurrence. Because the truth here is the different perspectives. They built a container in which all the students in the student body of the faculty are free. And also in Hala's example and in Michal's example, they built a safe place for all different narratives and experiences. This isn't just views about politics. This is real lived experiences and narratives and family stories. And once you build the safe space for this in your faculty or in your clinic, you're already talking about the right to truth in this, you know, microcosmos. And also the non-recurrence. And Dana talked about the rules of the game, and Hala talks about the red lines. So these are the rules of the game. What are the common values that we are subscribing to in this class, in this course? And what are the red lines? I think these are principles of non-repetition. This is how you safeguard from violations to occur. And so you're really practicing these very core principles of transitional justice. With regard to the other two elements, which are justice and reparation, you know, the accountability and the reparation, although you can teach them about it, and Hala was talking about how important it is in her course in ICL. But in the other examples, I think this is a little bit more difficult for the clinics to do. Although, you know, you can write papers about it and you can talk about how an accountability paradigm, which doesn't have to be criminal accountability, could be more wide social, political accountability paradigms. And how do you repair? How do you repair not only by you know, monetary, but also by the other kind of softer, but very meaningful ways that some of our clinical students see in their individual cases of acknowledgement, of apologies. And I think working on equality cases, which we have a lot of equality cases in another clinic in the faculty that's also working in the transitional justice program. And when they talk about equality, all these issues arise of historical discrimination and how can we fix it by bringing in equality, bringing in affirmative action. And again, hopefully these students affect politics later on. This is what we can hope for at the moment. And of course, we give them the lectures on TJ, which lets them at least learn about these topics. And I think, Hala, maybe you want to conclude a bit in how you present it under your course in international criminal law. Perhaps it has a bit of a room there as well.
I mean, I very much agree with what Sigal have mentioned here. I think the most important thing in this time, because as Sigal said, we are in I don't think we are ready, but we have to prepare people, we have to prepare students, I talk about transitional justice mechanisms in my class in international law. When I talk about accountability, ICC, I talk about also other mechanisms, Truth Commission, Truth and Reconciliation Commission. But I think it starts with, and I think we are not there yet because the war is still going on and people are hurt, people are victims, many students are soldiers, many students are coming from the field, many students have families in the field. It's very hard to do that now. There is no, what's the right word? There is no psychological ability, I think, now in general to Israeli students to be in a transitional justice phase. But I think we start by emphasizing or just enabling an academic atmosphere where there is place for another view, for a different view, for a critical view, for somebody who doesn't agree with me, because the truth has two sides. There's a story, truth telling. You have two sides of the story, and it's very important. We start by giving first one of the sides of the story the space to express, to say, and it's not even there right now. Yes, it's a stage what's going on in Israel where the other side is suppressed, is repressed, and cannot express things. So there's a lot to do, and I look forward to engage in such process. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. We have only 2 minutes left. I don't know if you have another question, but I'm not sure we have time for that anyway. So I want to thank all the participants, to Dana, Hala, and Michal for their very interesting point of view about how to what it was like for us in the past year in the situation and all the. I mean, every day I'll just say that for us every day we used to say that there are no words to describe what we are going through, but still we are all legal academics. So we had to find the words, we had to find a way to keep doing what we do and try to give our students, our staff, and ourselves a place to talk about the things. Dana, I think we would all like to get your model throughout the campuses. I think it's really important. Hala, thank you for your words. It's always, I want to say again, important, but to give us the voice, your voice, and hear it. And Michali, thank you for your work and all your efforts for everything, for your students and your projects and your clients and everything that you do in your everyday work. So thank you, everyone.